Hello and welcome. You're watching once again a special episode of Versus. We're coming to you from perhaps what many would call the financial hub of the Delhi University, right here in Delhi. We have students of Sri Ram College of Commerce, the first year of economics. We have guests, but what we're talking about is the budget that's coming up on the 1st of February. What are we talking about today? We're not talking about what's to look forward to in the budget. What are you expecting? What do you want from the budget? But we are looking at what perhaps is another economic bombshell. And we've been talking about how NDTV is the channel for elections, but we can also tell you we're also the channel for budget. Why? Because this budget is not about the economics. This budget is about the politics. We'll just explain why that's the case, because Rahul Gandhi has dropped yet another bombshell. We're not talking about Priyanka Gandhi. He may have done that just a few days back. But what we're talking about actually is the bombshell that he's just announced in Chhattisgarh. What has he said? A minimum income guarantee or a universal basic income for the poor if the Congress is elected. That's the huge news. Now, there may have already been a reaction from the BJP. Listen to what Rahul Gandhi said, and we'll tell you more about this in just a bit.
अब हम एक ऐसा कदम उठाने जा रहे हैं जो दुनिया की किसी भी सरकार ने नहीं उठाया हुआ, और यह काम सिर्फ कांग्रेस पार्टी कर सकती है। हमने निर्णय ले लिया है कि हिंदुस्तान के हर गरीब व्यक्ति को 2019 के बाद कांग्रेस पार्टी वाली सरकार गारंटी करके न्यूनतम आमदनी देने जा रही है। इसका मतलब मिनिमम इनकम गारंटी, मतलब हिंदुस्तान के हर गरीब व्यक्ति के बैंक अकाउंट में कम से कम न्यूनतम आमदनी हिंदुस्तान की सरकार देने जा रही है। मतलब हिंदुस्तान में ना कोई भूखा रहेगा, ना कोई गरीब रहेगा।
This is a very laudable achievement of India. And we as a country must be proud that we are the country which will have only 3% poverty rate in next 3 years. And then after, by 2030, we expect that there will be nobody below poverty line. And that is where India wants to progress, because empowerment of poor is our mantra. And entitlement of poor was Congress mantra. That's the difference.
All right, so we've been talking about universal basic income for quite some time, whether it be the economic survey where the idea was floated by Arvind Subramaniam, the chief economic advisor, or many other publications and thoughts by critics or economists. The big question is, has the Congress taken a lead against the BJP by announcing it right before the budget? That's the big question. Have they preempted what the BJP was going to do and basically reached out to the voter first? That's the big question we're asking. With me out here is Karan Bhasin, a young economist, and Meghnad, who's not just a LAMP fellow, but is also a political observer and an analyst. He's not leaning towards the BJP, and he is leaning towards the BJP. So let's start with the government, in a sense. Is this only political?
Well, there are two aspects to this. First is, of course, it is political somewhere, because you see, at the end of the day, it is an election year. But beyond that, I have always been fundamentally in support of a cash transfer, because our existing poverty alleviation schemes are too leaky, and it would be absurd to not think of alternative solutions. Having said that, it comes as a surprise that he has made this announcement without having any estimates or without going into the details of it. So what I would like to say is, it's like the farm loan waiver that they announced before the elections, and clearly
which won them the election.
They won them the elections, but right now you go and ask any farmer in Madhya Pradesh, and all of them are saying that it was a big lie. I mean, come on.
All of them are saying that. Well, yeah. We've done a story on that, and some farmers have actually not said that.
How many farmers have actually received an entire farm loan waiver?
We don't have the numbers on that, exactly. And I think you don't have the numbers either.
I do. That's what I'm saying.
How do you? Are they reliable?
Yeah, they are very much reliable, because it's based on a very extensive survey. So first of all, a major proportion of farmers who actually need these waivers, which is around 90% of farmers, were kept outside of it because they don't take credit from formal sectors of financing. So the design of the announcement in itself kept out 90% of farmers who were actually the ones who needed it the most.
But history has shown that you have a situation where the voters buy this information. and they vote accordingly. Now, what I'm asking you is, has the Congress taken the lead? Has, in a sense, preempted what the BJP was doing? They've got the advantage. They've got the early advantage.
Well, look, I wouldn't say that they have got the early advantage, because since December we have heard that the Prime Minister's office has been holding meetings in order to see whether this can be implemented or
In
not.
the budget.
In the budget. And first things first, let's not call it a universal basic income, because that's not what it is.
enough.
Because it's
Minimum
for the
income
poor.
guarantee.
So yeah, minimum income
That's what they
guarantee,
are calling it.
targeted basic income, but it is definitely not a universal basic income. That is very misleading.
Okay.
The question that we must ask right now is that if he wants to give a minimum income guarantee,
Yeah.
what is the definition of poverty according to Rahul Gandhi? Because he once said that poverty is a state of mind. So, I mean, how is he going to define who is poor, and what is going to be the transfer amount?
Well, the government has announced it. 8 lakh if somebody is earning in a year, that's poor. That's what they say when they did the 10% quota. I'll probably follow that only. But most people who earn 8 lakh a year have said, excuse me, I'm poor. I didn't know that. Anyway, what's your take on the fact that the Congress seems to have taken the lead and advantage?
So I sort of agree with him when he says that universal basic income and minimum income guarantee for the poor is completely different.
Okay.
But I think what Rahul Gandhi has done a very clever thing.
Okay.
He might have actually preempted what is coming
In the budget.
which we don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. There's no way of saying that.
Yeah.
But there were signs that there's something big was coming. Some SOP was coming in this budget.
Yeah.
Because you have to also understand that before the elections, there has to be a vote on account usually for the budget, right? Which means that the next government that comes in will bring in an interim budget, and it might actually completely change.
Yeah.
But this time there has been a news that Piyush
The
Goyal
interim
might
budget will not happen.
interim budget might happen, might not happen, but they are going to present a full budget.
Absolutely. This
Which
is unprecedented, never happened before.
Because of the simple fact that it has also been preponed to February. Earlier it used to be in March end, which is actually a good thing, by the way.
Okay.
But apart from that, I think this is a very clever move coming from the Congress.
Okay.
Because it also points out that because the idea of universal basic income till now, the one that was being discussed,
Any comments, please raise your hand.
has always been that instead of subsidies, we will give them a minimum amount of money, and that will be like in lieu of
Yeah.
subsidies.
Do you have to do you have the gall, the economic gall, to be able to admit right now that this is absolutely not feasible for India to do, even without knowing the finer details of what Rahul Gandhi is trying to say?
Okay, so as he said, the economic survey has already put out a chapter on this, and they said that it can be 12,000 rupees per year per person, right?
But
so
who all
they
get
have-
it? Everyone, or is it
Everyone. It's universal.
So you and I will get 12,000 bucks.
Absolutely. So everyone, like 15 lakh की जगह 12,000 तो जरूर मिलेगा.
Okay.
Right? So 12,000 रुपए
वो
like
तो नहीं मिला तो ये भी शायद नहीं मिलेगा.
maybe.
Implementation is a problem. I mean, it has failed in countries like Finland and Canada. So just as an example of that.
Absolutely. So there have been tests done all over the world. And I think he will also point this out soon, so I will preempt him, like Rahul Gandhi.
Since everyone's
there is no guarantee that this works, right?
Okay.
So some economists say that if you give a minimum amount of money to some people, like people who are poor, they might not want to work. Like, I mean, that is, it will basically
labor will be affected.
It will basically make them lazy. The productivity will go down. Again, there is no evidence of this happening. There have been tests done. But these are all pilot studies which have been done in other countries. In India, it has never happened.
Well, Indians can be lazy, as Russell Peters says in a comedy show. But yeah, you had a comment to make. Go ahead.
I had a comment to make that if we are giving 12,000 to each and every individual,
Roughly, we don't know right now. how much
Yeah,
it's going to
around
be.
12,000. So India has a population of 125 crores. If we give 12,000 to each and every individual, do the government has enough, so much money to spend on this?
Okay. Let's ask somebody who understands what we're talking about. You're a chartered accountant, Abhishek Modak, who's not just a chartered accountant, he's actually a financial consultant at Vision India Foundation, a public policy think tank. I just want to ask you, is it feasible? That's basically the point he's making. 1.25 crore people getting an estimate, let's say 12,000 rupees.
Right.
We don't know what it is right now. Yeah.
So see, estimated 12,000 rupees if 125 crore Indians get, so it will approximate to around 10 lakh crores in a financial year.
That
So
was a
if,
quick calculation, by the way.
yeah, so if it's around 10 lakh crores, so that has to replace all the central sector schemes and the centrally sponsored schemes that are there in
One
effect.
sec, it has to replace them, but there are already some crazy number of schemes that are there.
Right,
So,
all
what
the
about them?
schemes? So all the schemes approximate to approximately 10 lakh crores of spending by the government in a financial year. So only if it is replaced, so all the schemes have to replace, and only then you can give such a scheme, right?
Okay. Wait, will you think about what you got to say next? Yeah, go ahead.
I think like in India we have like different desire. Like we give like subsidies on education, health, but our needs differ from place to place.
Okay.
Like some want to invest on education, some might have health. So I think this scheme is better, and like we can implement in phases. It's not implement universally all over the India. We can like from 50,000 low, then 1 lakh low. So I think in implementing stages it can be proved like a very good stroke for India.
Okay, interesting. How political is this move, even if you counter what was just said?
First, let me just make a quick comment on the calculation. So 12,000 was the initial proposal by Arvind Subramaniam, but there have been multiple proposals that have come even before him. One of them included changing all the food subsidies to a DBT framework.
Okay.
Now,
You're getting technical.
no, okay. So basically, don't do PDS and do cash transfers and stuff like that.
Okay.
So if you transfer around 6,000 bucks per annum, that comes to around 2 lakh crores, and that is well within the fiscal space that Indian government has as a replacement for just fuel and food subsidies.
Okay.
So it is very much doable if it is done in a smart manner.
Okay.
My concern is that while he tweeted and made this statement, I'm not sure whether he understands these details and whether he has really thought them through.
I don't know why people are laughing about that. That's very unfair of you not to I mean, are you really saying that the leader of the opposition, the Congress president, Rahul Gandhi, the man who is touted to be potentially a prime minister in some future of India, doesn't know what he's saying?
Well, of course,
He's not thought this through and spoken to young economists like yourself.
No, it looks like it was just done in the heat of the moment. I mean, it doesn't look like a very well thought out move. Maybe it was just because he did preempt.
Okay, so are you saying this move is completely political?
It is, of course, it is because
How is it different from 10% quota then? That's political also.
I said the 10% quota is definitely somewhere political, but it was the need of the hour given that.
Okay, it was the need of the hour. Prediction: was the BJP going to also do the same thing in the budget? What was your thinking before this?
So after the December results came, I was in fact I tweeted the very next day that it is time to reconsider what Arvind Subramaniam had suggested, because
so you're saying it was going to happen.
I am saying that it should have happened. It should have happened.
There's still some days left for the budget.
Well, I don't know. Of course, finance minister is the best person to comment whether this is going to happen or not.
I am asking you, do you predict that it was going to happen before this?
Well, there were media reports that suggest that it was supposed to happen. So I would
not answer the question.
I have a feeling I think he will not answer, but there was one thing that was definitely going to happen, which was farm loan waiver was a thing that was supposed to happen in this budget. But what I think was also going to happen was direct cash transfer to farmers, right? Like they've done in Telangana and Orissa.
Okay.
There was, there was word that, there was going to be some sort of a central scheme which would be targeted to farmers.
And by the way, Sikkim has already announced this about a week or two back. I think back. Yeah.
So now, if you are talking about what Rahul Gandhi did, right? It is a minimum income guarantee for the poor, right? How do you define the poor, etc.? That is another thing.
Separately.
And I do not think he talked just randomly. I think
Does everyone think that he talked randomly or he knows what he's talking about? Yes. How many people think that he knows what he's talking about? Nobody. Raise your hand who think that he knows what he's talking about. Raise your hand loud and clear, guys. Okay, and those who don't think he knows what he's talking about, it's just political. Okay, you can. Yeah. Okay, go.
Right. So I think there might have been some thought, is what I'm saying, behind this.
Okay.
Because he has made it a minimum income guarantee for the poor. It was not universal basic income, which means there is some other thought going on behind it.
Okay. We have no time right now. We got to take a short break. But before we go and take that break, I just want to quote what an agricultural economist has said, saying what this is happening. Ashok Gulati, what has he said? It is fascinating. Okay, listen to this. He has said this to NDTV. Rahul Gandhi needs more time to digest what he's saying. He has just made a vague announcement without giving any details. Now that's what one agricultural economist has said. But then again, from SRCC, there you go. But then again, the point is, if the BJP was anyway going to do this, does it really matter? We'll come back. You're watching Versus. We have enough to discuss. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Versus. We are talking about what Rahul Gandhi has done. He has preempted perhaps what the BJP was going to do as it was going to go ahead and announce the budget on the 1st of February. What has he done? Well, he's basically announced that there will be a minimum income guarantee during a Kisan rally in Chhattisgarh, he said that the poor, if Congress is elected, will get a minimum income guarantee. Sources have told NDTV, these are top Congress sources, that amount is about 1,500 to 1,800 per month per person when they are elected, if they are elected. Now, what was the BJP's number? We don't have an idea of. We don't even know if the BJP was going to go ahead and actually announce something like this, a universal basic income, minimum income guarantee, whatever it is, in the coming budget. But there were reports that it would happen since there were enough in the establishment that had been vouching for it. So Karan Bhasin with me. Karan, I just want to make a point, as we are showing on our screens right now, which is something quite crazy, that in the coming election, 246 seats, 8 to 10 states will basically be most impacted by this move, because that's where a lot of the population that is poor in India lives. So it's a huge political move. But I want to understand from you first, is this something that is feasible now that we know the figure we're talking about? 1,500 to 1,800 according to Congress sources per month per person.
So I'll tell you, in a recent paper that Dr. Bhalla and I wrote, we explored the idea of a targeted basic income.
You actually wrote a paper on this with Sujit Bhalla.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the figure that we came and the figure that we arrived at was rupees 530 for a monthly transfer. And let me explain how we arrived at this figure.
Rupees 530
per month for rural people.
Okay. Can I just get you to comment on that?
It's around 18 rupees per day, which is less than the universal basic level of poverty line. So how will it benefit the poor people?
But he wants to make an explanation.
Let me answer. So based on the NSSO data for 2010-11, which is the consumption data, what is the
NSSO?
National Sample Survey Organization.
Thank you.
What essentially we did was that we took out the average consumption expenditure of Indians who were below the poverty line, and then we looked at the World Bank poverty line for middle income countries, which is $3.1 per day. So people living less than $3.1 per day. We identified the gap between these two figures, and then we decided that what is required is to transfer just this gap so that they move out of poverty. And one of the reasons why we deliberately chose this is because we wanted to ensure that we don't make people dependent upon a recurring subsidy, which is such a brilliant idea, but it also has the potential to make your labor force extremely lazy, and this can significantly impact your labor supply decisions. So it was a very well thought paper.
Okay, I just want to ask you, this is something that I've learned again from Congress sources. And this may come out very poorly, but I think this is something that the Congress is trying to work at. What they're saying is this is a statement of intent.
Right.
They are not saying that they have a plan for it yet. This is a statement of intent. We will figure out how to do it. So I want to ask you, is it possible if concessions are made like he said? He made it very clear that it can be done if the other schemes are taken back.
So that is essentially what universal basic income is supposed to be, right? Which is in lieu of subsidies, all these schemes which are supposed to be welfare schemes, you will replace them with a minimum basic income. Right? If they are saying 1,500 to 1,800 per month, but again, they are also pointing out it will be for the poor. So, which means there will be subsidies as well. So again, we don't know those details, right?
My worry is that we have seen in implementation there's corruption. In India, in every scheme, forget universal basic income or minimum income guarantee. And we have a fiscal deficit, and we were falling short of that 3.1 target, right? 3.5%, 3.3% target. 3 point, yeah. So what do you have to say about that?
So see, as Meghnad rightly said, that it's again, the devil is in the details. So you have to see that if Rahul Gandhi has said that they are going to give 1,500 to 1,800 rupees for the poor. So what percentage is going to be covered? So if it's going to be 1,500 and approximately taking 50% of the Indian population, it would come to approximately again at that 10 lakh crore figure. Now if that 10 lakh crore figure is, and all these schemes are going to be subsumed, and in lieu of that, this 10 lakh crore figure is to be transferred. We have to see what the effect is going to be. I mean, it's, again, it's, nobody knows what the effect is going to be. So, I mean, there can be an apprehension that it doesn't turn out to be another demonetization like effect, right?
Whoa, that's a big one. That's a big point you made. One second. I just want to get him to answer one question. Is this political? And if it is, has the Congress taken the advantage?
Well,
because you have to also say that whether you expected the BJP to do the same in the budget.
So see, I personally thought that the BJP would not go for a universal basic income for the poor, but rather to root out the rural distress and the farm distress. They would rather go for different schemes for the targeted towards the agricultural agriculture.
So then has the Congress got the advantage?
So yeah, so with such a big announcement and like Mr. Modi did it in 2014 election with the 15 lakh per account.
You want to compare the two actually?
So
you think they're as absurd as each other are?
I mean, that was 15 lakh. That was too aspirational, I feel. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Quick point.
Speaking of ill thought out, things. Demonetization, as you rightly pointed out. But even the 10% quota that happened was a political move. We have to understand that because nobody has pointed out how it will be implemented.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So,
yeah, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah, if I could slip in a quick point coming from an economics point of view,
Yeah.
I feel that it's largely not feasible in a country like us. Considering that you're targeting it to the poor, considering that they form the lowest strata of the society, you are giving them cash with no kind of monitoring over how they use that cash for, knowing that that cash can be easily spent on alcohol or whatnot. So the very purpose of getting them out of poverty and I think something something like a more targeted scheme to help rural distress etc. would be more
Quickly.
What Mr. Subramaniam proposed was we believe the people, but that's not how the politics and the government will work. And then coming to the point of government, then we had the Ayushman Bharat the previous year, but the government saw it through. I believe your statement of intent from Rahul Gandhi is just his sort of a jumla, which may turn out well, but
For him.
is he able enough to tell the people that he'll also snatch back subsidies?
Okay, that's the big question. All right, okay, so this was Versus. We had a great crowd and great guests to talk about this big announcement from Rahul Gandhi. Thanks so much for being with us.